Okay, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. I had a viewer-requested rant. The topic is a pro wrestling topic. If you're not a pro wrestling fan, I gently suggest you find another video here on my wonderful channel. Please, you might want to start with Disregard the Vampire Mike Messier documentary. If you've already seen that or you want to do something else, I've got Messier Peace Theater, 6-part series. That's a whole playlist to itself. That's a lot of fun, behind the scenes of making a short film. Messier Mantra, the interview show, a lot of other great stuff. If you're in a risque mood, the Suicide Girls Burlesque. Let's get back to this pro wrestling rant. For those that are interested in professional wrestling, Nick Aldis is the favorite wrestler of Facebook pal of mine, Mark. Mark, you didn't say if you wanted your name, your full last name said in the video. Some people like that, some people don't, but Mark with a C, last name T. Let's say that for now. Mark, if you want to identify yourself, leave a comment. But Mark requested Nick Aldis an analysis, and I told Mark from the get-go before he suggested the video. He asked me what I thought of Nick Aldis, and in short, I said I think Nick Aldis is a great wrestler. Probably the most interesting thing to me about Nick Aldis is he does not seem to be pursuing airtime or working for WWE or AEW. In fact, apparently there's some type of war of the words between Nick Aldis and Bruce Pritchard, of all people. And Nick is a classy guy from all accounts, and as a matter of fact, Nick Aldis has a paperback book that I just ordered. In full disclosure, it seemed to be interesting that Nick Aldis, who I guess is 34 years old, he's I always get confused what to say, to be honest with you. Do I say he's from Britain? Do I say he's from the UK? Do I say he's from England? But Nick Aldis is from over there. Take your pick of terminology, and someone can clarify, please, because it's something that's bothered me for quite some time. What's the difference between Britain, the United Kingdom, and England? Please, I believe what it is that the United Kingdom encompasses England, but is Britain and England the same thing, or what? So I can be stand corrected, but anyway, Nick Aldis is credited as being the second UK NWA World Heavyweight Champion, meaning the National Wrestling Alliance World Heavyweight Champion from the UK. Somebody's speeding. And Gary Albright, I believe, was the first. And I think, unfortunately, Gary Albright died in the ring, and God willing, that won't happen to our buddy Nick Aldis. I think Nick's a very classy wrestler. His presentation is like that of a tweener, meaning he's not quite a heel, he's not quite a baby face. He uses the term for himself, he is the dealer, which I like. It's kind of a flashback to Ric Flair. Flair, among many of Flair's popular slogans or mantras or expressions back in the 80s, Ric Flair used to say something to the effect of, when you're dealing with the dealer, you're going to be dealt with. And so all this is kind of cut that to just say he's the dealer, and he likes to manipulate. And that kind of ties in with the second half of this video. I'm going to do an NWA Powerrr analysis of the last 3 episodes, 25, 26, 26, and 27, I believe. This is 2021, so I wrote down 35, but I think I meant to write, I'm not sure, folks, I'm getting confused right now, if they were 25, 26, and 27, or 35, 36, and 37s, but they were the episodes in April and early May of 2021, where we are now. Let's go back to Nick Aldis. I first became aware of him watching TNA. I was pretty much in that time frame that Aldis was coming up, 2007, 2008. I was a pretty marginal TNA fan. I'd pretty much watched the weekly shows, but really the pay-per-views, I couldn't get motivated to pay for the pay-per-views, with the exception of Hardcore Justice 2010, when they brought back the ECW guys. I did attend the Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle Cage pay-per-view, which was their biggest paid audience in Massachusetts. I was there for that. I liked TNA. I mean, I had a lot of the TNA action figures, believe it or not. I liked action figures, and I had them. As far as Magnus goes, I actually had a Magnus t-shirt for a while, believe it or not, that I I got through some type of shalandering. I think I volunteered to do some promotional stuff for TNA, and they sent me 5 t-shirts, which was nice. I liked TNA, and I thought Magnus, he looked like a real wrestler, you know, and these, when I say that, it's not to demean the current crop of wrestlers, but Aldis looks like a guy who could have wrestled in the 70s, the 80s, especially. Big muscular guy. I think he's, what, 6'4" or something, and he looks like, you know, and I read on his, before this video, I did some background research, just Wikipedia and Nick's own website, and he says he did bodybuilding and he did swimming. So, I mean, the guy's got a great look. He looks like $1 million. And the easy thing, I think, for people with the modern day Nick Aldis, or even Magnus before that, is, oh, he's the British Ric Flair, or he's trying to do a Ric Flair thing. Not really. His presentation, which I hate that term, by the way, presentation, that's a CONRAD thing, CONRAD THOMPSON. His approach, his style, his persona, it's more of a Nick Bockwinkel. It's more of a classic Nick Bockwinkel. Like, if you really were to compare, you know, Flair was often unhinged. If you look at the Ole Anderson attacks Ric Flair, or Flair and Dusty and all these things, Flair, the best part of Flair, I'm just laughing, I had a memory of that Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair Clash of the Champions 5 fight. But Nick is more like Nick Bockwinkel, and not just that they say they share the same first name, interestingly enough, but a more classy wrestler, dignified, intellectual. I went through his whole TNA resume there, and, you know, I just mind-blowing how much stuff happened in TNA with some names that we've forgotten, like Bram and all these guys, and I guess Mickey James even did some stuff with Nick, and they got married in real life, and good for them both. But it's just interesting how much stuff happened in TNA that, no offense, it doesn't stick to the ribs. You know, I think with the problem with TNA as a promotion, or Impact Wrestling, is that they did so much stuff so quickly without a lot of build-up, and some of it was good stuff. It's just, it happened too fast. Maybe not a lot of people were watching. The stuff they did wasn't always talked about because not a lot of fans were into it, or whatever the fuck. I don't know, but it's too bad, because if you look at the body of work that Aldis did, it's almost like you'd kind of like to see a best of compilation DVD. And I guess that TNA Wrestling Library, Impact Wrestling Library, for the most part, is still owned by the new owners of Impact Wrestling, and I guess they have a streaming service of some kind, but they don't have the old school DVDs where you could have like 20 or 30 Nick Aldis matches and moments on a collection. But there's probably some bootlegger out there who can do it for us. If the bootlegger wants to send me a free copy or give me a residual, please do. But Aldis, Magnus, you know, really did have a great TNA run, or Impact run, and he was let go in 2015, and he kind of drifted into this Jeff Jarrett thing, Global Force Wrestling, which I remember hearing a lot about it, but at the time, it wasn't that long ago, 2017, but as far as I remember, they didn't have television, and it seemed like a promotion that was, people were talking about, but nobody was seeing this Global Force Wrestling. Like, it was always being talked about, but I never really saw it. And I guess Magnus was the first champion there, or Nick Aldis, he started wrestling as his real name. Now he goes into the NWA, and I do remember this, when Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins decided, not even of the Smashing Pumpkins, like Billy Corgan pretty much is the Smashing Pumpkins. So when Billy Corgan decided to get into the pro wrestling game, and it didn't work out for him in Impact Wrestling, and Billy ended up buying the National Wrestling Alliance, the remains of it, like the ghost of the National Wrestling Alliance, Billy Corgan, you know, basically had this Tim Storm guy that he inherited. And I do like Tim Storm, but the biggest deficit of Tim Storm is really his age. I mean, the guy is still in great shape. He's very respectable. He kind of reminds me of a Ronnie Garvin, but like a guy that actually wants to be there. Like, well, I was a big Ronnie Garvin fan, but the vibe is that he always kind of, you know, it's like Ronnie Garvin wishes that there was like just paid fighting, like backyard fighting or something, that he didn't really have a passion, Ronnie Garvin, for pro wrestling. He did it for the paycheck, which is fine. He was very good at it, Ronnie Garvin was, but this guy, Tim Storm, has that Middle Earth, you know, he could be your milkman, he could be your mailman, he could be your pro wrestling world champion. It's Tim Storm. Here he is, you know, the big glass of milk for the kids. But Tim Storm was the champion. I guess he defeated Nick Aldis. Nick came in for NWA Wrestling from Hollywood, which is an interesting thing. I actually was at a live show of theirs once. But I guess it was December of 2017 that they did this 10 Pounds of Gold series, and Nick Aldis won the title, and it was a good fit. It really was. And I have enjoyed, I think it's kind of over now, but they had for quite some time this Nick Aldis, Tim Storm running storyline. That was kind of the key thing of their shows, their YouTube shows, their videos, was Aldis and Storm. That's really all they had, you know, because they didn't have television. I'm talking about the National Wrestling Alliance now, the modern day. Look, we don't have time to go through the whole history of the National Wrestling Alliance, but suffice to say, you know, these two guys, Aldis and Storm, and maybe more so Aldis, were keeping this thing going, and it was good, you know, as far as the on-screen talent. And backstage people, I'm sure, were doing their part. So we move forth, and Aldis has this belt, but then he did something very wise, I think, and I guess it was Corgan had to agree to it, or whoever, but Aldis dropped the NWA title. He became involved in the All In show. The All In was the kind of the predecessor to Tony Khan's involvement in pro wrestling with All Elite Wrestling, but All In was that kind of supposed to be a one and done, but what we didn't know as fans at the time was that it was kind of a trial run for All Elite Wrestling, or a test pattern, or a test product, whatever you want to call it. But it turned out that Aldis getting the NWA title, some airtime on that show, having a pretty good match with Cody, and losing the title, although there was a few moments of stickery, like when Cody juices in that match. If you've ever seen it, he juices very poorly, like it's very obvious he's blading. And juicing is a term we used to use in New England for drawing blood on yourself for wrestling. So the match was a really pretty good match, very emotional, as Cody likes to do those emotional matches, and Aldis was right there with him, except the juice job or the blade job was obvious. I want to say that DDP interfered in that match at some point. And then you had a rematch just a couple of months later, like the NWA Anniversary show. And I do remember at the time that some Cody Rhodes fans or whatever were kind of pissy and moany about it, but Aldis got his title back, and I think, I could be wrong, I think that's when he debuted Camille, we'll get to her later, but Camille and Aldis, I think has been a really good thing. I think even the silent Camille, kind of as that Triple H China bodyguard, female bodyguard thing, I think that was a bit better. It turns out in real life, you know, Camille is with Braun Strowman and so forth, or she was, who knows, with these wrestlers. But Camille, I think, and all this worked well together. Moving forth, I would say that the biggest thing, and I'm going to get into this NWA Powerrr review in a moment, but the biggest thing with Nick Aldis in his career is he doesn't have his steamboat. And if you follow that, you know exactly what I mean. Is Ric Flair had Ricky Steamboat. You could say, you know, even a Nick Bockwinkel had a Greg Gagne, you know, a baby face to work with that people want to see. Or Nick Bockwinkel had a Rick Martel, maybe, I don't know. But I don't see all this, because when I was watching these, and I guess I'm going to segue a little bit here into this NWA Powerrr review of the three most recent episodes, of which I had to sign up for the Fight TV app, by the way. So if you could, subscribe to the Mike Messier YouTube channel, which is totally free to subscribe to. You don't have to watch every single video, but if you're a pro wrestling fan, hit the fucking subscribe button and hit the alarm button, so at least you know what I'm up to, okay? But Nick Aldis doing, he really is the dealer on this NWA show. He's really kind of, what I like about it is that instead of having some goddamn Vince McMahon or some Eric Bischoff or some figurehead, and I guess Tony Khan's kind of dipping into that now, like the figurehead owner who might be the real owner, or the commissioner, or the general manager, like Teddy Long announcing a SmackDown match playa. Instead of doing that on NWA Powerrr, unless I'm forgetting something or missing something, Nick Aldis, the champion, is kind of running the show, which does remind me of the old Ric Flair running the NWA. Like it really feels like the champion's the centerpiece, and he's kind of the spokesman for the whole promotion. And I think that's a good fit for what the NWA is offering, because they're obviously not touring the country right now. They obviously have limited resources. They're not doing 20,000 seat venues, or even 1,000 seat venues. As of now, they're just doing the TV studio. And these 3 episodes, it sounded like they had a very small amount of people. It sounded like the crew occasionally was yelling out stuff. They didn't have like regular audience members, like non-people involved in the show. But I did like that Aldis is the dealer. He's kind of the centerpiece. He's running things. He's even, the episodes that I saw in Trevor Murdoch, he's trying to manipulate Trevor Murdoch to go after this national heavyweight title in lieu of the world title, or you have to get this national title in order to get to me. And if you watch these episodes, it's either 25, 26, and 27, or 35, 36, and 37, you can see that they really had a nice pacing to this storyline that went from week to week and made logical sense. And I think that's what people who've been watching the NWA, this rebooted version of the NWA, they've been appreciating that there's some thought to these storylines. Some other thoughts, non-Nick Aldis stuff. Well, you have the World Heavyweight title, you have the national title that seems to be number 2. And that's great, because the lineage of those titles, although it's been broken several times, you'd have to say, but the national heavyweight title was the 605 Saturday night title for years. Brad Armstrong and Ted DiBiase, Mr. R waving in the mask. Look for that in 1984, the spoiler. You know what I mean? Ronnie Garvin finally getting the Georgia national title over Ted DiBiase. There was some really great stuff with that national heavyweight title. It actually meant something back then. And they're trying to do that here. So you get the world title, then the national title, and then kind of really interesting was this NWA TV title. It looked like a pretty good replica of the belt that Tully used to wear, the red and black one. And they have this 6:05 limit, meaning that the match is only 6 minutes and 5 seconds, and you got to beat the champion within that short limit. And that's a tip of the hat, in case you didn't know, to the old Saturday night time start on 6:05, because Ted Turner, who had bipolar illness apparently, liked to do things a little bit differently, and he started his shows at 6:05. He had some weird reasoning, because he wanted like a show that started at 4 p.m. or 4:05 p.m. to go to 6:05, because then you'd get hooked in. It was just kind of an interesting little quirk of the early days of cable TV. Some other thoughts. Let's start with commentary. The commentary, I'm not getting this Mae Valentine thing. No offense to her, but I can see why Billy Corgan would like her, because she's a blonde, busty female who looks like she's from Los Angeles in 2002, and she's got a bunch of tattoos. However, no offense, I'm sure she's an intelligent woman. Apparently she's written books and done all these things for Spin Magazine, but she doesn't speak the best English. It's not her first language, no offense, but she accentuates different accents in the words oddly, and it kind of seems like she doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. And no offense, but her look is not so great that she can be a piss poor talking head. She doesn't seem like she's talking a whole lot. Like, she's kind of standing there with the microphone. I don't quite get it. She's not doing it for me. No offense, because like I said, she speaks at least one more language than I do, because, you know, English is not her first language. So I'm not saying she's a bad person or anything. I just don't think her position is not very good, because she's not speaking a whole lot, and I don't know, I don't get it. And the Velvet Sky, I guess I'm going to pile up now. Velvet Sky, I think, is one of the prettiest women physically, and just a really beautiful woman who has been in wrestling for a long time now. No offense, but 15 years or whatever since the Beautiful People heyday. She looks great. I would rather see her as a manager or as a behind-the-scenes interviewer. I don't think her as a commentator is a great fit. She just doesn't seem to be that enthusiastic. Like she's trying to be reserved or calm, but it doesn't feel like she's letting loose or having fun. It doesn't seem like a good fit to me. So I know I just pissed on both of those, not literally, but just I guess I'm not giving much credence to either one in those roles. I think of the two, Velvet's a hell of a lot better. I just don't think she's a great commentator. I think she'd be better as a backstage interviewer. I think that would be fine. Or I'd rather like to see her. I guess she's not competing. Wrestling was never Velvet Sky's forte, but her being a manager or something, I don't know. The commentary to me, the one person I thought was good on the commentary team was the straight man, the normal guy, the guy in the fucking tie, the regular play-by-play guy. I thought he was pretty good. The interviewer guy who kind of is balding, he's okay. Tim Storm did some color commentary. He's okay. That was mostly used to get him into the ring. The first episode I watched, whatever it was, 25 or 35, the most interesting match that caught my attention was Camille versus Jenny Side. Now here's a little thing. Jenny Side, her boots, if you see this, had a JV on it. Why do her boots have JV? Who's the V? Is that a different wrestling name that she was using? But just a little caught you there. Why are her boots saying JV? The Jenny Side, kind of an intense look with the silver makeup on her face. And Camille, I thought, had a really good match. And it's kind of like if this was the 90s, you say, oh, they should have saved it for pay-per-view. But where the fuck, they don't have a lot of pay-per-views. So it was a good match. And I do think Camille's a good talent. I'll just say this now. On episode 37 or whatever the fuck it was, Camille is doing promo work. I kind of like the quiet Camille, to be honest. It's not good. Like, Camille has a few things she says are pretty good, and it doesn't sound scripted, but I kind of like the silent Camille. Like, I like that gimmick where she wasn't talking last time I checked with NWA. She said in her promo that I saw, she did a few good lines, but sometimes she was struggling. The first thing I saw was this jabroni guy beat the tag champs, this Sal Ronaldo or whatever. So he basically looks like if the Young Bucks had a triplet and this was like the afterbirth that lived, this would be this Sal Ronaldo guy. He's just not very appeasing to the eyes, and he kind of wears that, I don't know what to call it, the fringy boots and the I'm a rocker. It's just to cover up a really unimpressive physical stature, and it's not like he's a great wrestler. So the thing of him, even in a gimmicky way, beating that big guy with the tattoos and the former Damian Sandow, whatever he's calling himself now, the storyline was there. It was something to watch. I mean, it took place. It happened. It wasn't offensive. It just wasn't great. So they had that. Tim Storm getting involved was kind of nice. I mean, last time I checked, Tim Storm was losing to Aldis and therefore can no longer wrestle again. You had this, going forward, I guess I'm jumping around these 3 episodes, but the Austin Idol Velvet Sky stuff, that was actually pretty funny. Like, Austin Idol trying to hit on Velvet Sky, who's about half his age, if not less than half his age. And he leaves, and Velvet said he smelled bad. That was funny stuff. Austin Idol saying that Velvet Sky's in love with him, and it was pretty funny. The Melina, okay, here's where you get 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. Thunder Rosa and Camille are supposed to have this Contenders Eliminator match, and the winner gets Serena Deeb if Camille agrees to it. And so then they both have, for whatever the fuck reason, it wasn't explained fully, you have to have a speaker. Both women had to have a speaker, which just seemed like an excuse to make some people earn their paycheck for being there. So Melina, who I have mixed feelings about, comes out, and Taryn Tyrell comes out, and two of the most god-awful promo segments, and I'm sounding very negative towards the women in NWA. I just don't think that they were used well. I mean, you've got some real... Thunder Rosa is a great talent. I like Thunder Rosa. I like Camille. Melina, not so much. And Taryn Tyrell, she had one really good match years ago against somebody. Was it the wife, the beautiful people, the Madison Rain, or something like that. But Taryn Tyrell is doing this whiny thing, and Melina is just insulting her, and all the women were talking over each other. Like, you had 4 women, then you had this May Valentine person. I actually did notes for this in case you're wondering. You had May Valentine trying to hold the microphone, another guy is standing there. It was a fucking train wreck, and it was really painful. And it's one of those things where if someone's struggling with their promo and the other person feels the need to talk over them to get it going, it makes it worse. So these women in their minds are trying to make it move forward. In fact, they're just slowing it down, and they're mocking each other. It was really bad. Sorry. It was horrible. God. What else? Velvet Sky said something... Are they alive in one of the matches? I thought that was a funny line. What else? This Strictly Business. I guess Strictly Business is Nick Aldis's unit now. And I guess everybody has to have a fucking faction. And we're just running out of good faction names. You know, like Strictly Business. I don't know. I don't. I mean, wasn't there like a Bette Midler movie? You know, like Big Business or something. It's not good. The commercials, you go more Nick Aldis stuff for your Mark with a C with the last name T. Aldis, the action figure thing, I thought was kind of funny. I guess it really does exist, as Nick Aldis retro action figure. I was a little confused why, of all people, they chose the Ultimate Warrior figure. It's a WWF figure, first of all, Hasbro figure from like 1990, but why is the Ultimate Warrior figure getting abused in these commercials? I didn't quite understand that. The former Titus and Pope were feuding for that TV title. I don't know. Titus doesn't do much for me. He's telling us how much he's on television, which is fine, but he's not a very interesting guy. There was some things with him a couple of years ago. Pope, so on. How you doing? Go ahead. There's some jabroni guys on episode 2. Oh yeah, there are 2 jabroni guys who are having like an argument about something, and I didn't quite understand why. These jabroni guys were having like I say they were jabroni guys. They were more like mid-carders. One guy was like, well, I don't talk with my words, I talk with my wrestling. Which is fine. I didn't quite get it. They didn't do much for me. And then that guy, like in the next episode, threw in the towel for the match to end because his buddy was hurt. So, I don't know. It was kind of a mixed thing. The end of the 3rd episode actually ended on a very strange way. They were saying that Nick Aldis had demanded that Strictly Business leave the venue. I didn't quite get that. So it feels to me that these 3 episodes started strong and got kind of weak by the end. And, you know, the Sal Ronaldo guy, I don't see much for him in the future. The commentary team could be tweaked. They are going to have a pay-per-view in a couple of weeks, which should be interesting. To go back to, and I don't know why, but I guess Trevor Murdoch, I mean, this guy lived through a lot. His tag team partner died, like his old tag team partner died years ago, and that was like 15 years ago. He was at Raw. Weren't they tag team champions for 2 weeks or something? But Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch, and if you looked at those two guys, you would think that Murdoch would be the one that would be dead, but he's still alive. And if they're going to do Murdoch versus Nick Aldis, which it seemed to be leading to, they kind of swerved us away from that. I really feel like going back to Nick Aldis, he's a Flair without a Steamboat. He doesn't have anyone to wrestle, and maybe this whole thing with the storyline of Tim Storm having to not get another world title match, maybe that was a bad idea, because maybe they should have kept Nick Aldis in contention, because now you don't have anyone. I mean, not Nick Aldis, but Tim Storm, because even though Tim Storm is like 55 at this point, he's probably the most interesting character they have. I don't know who they could have Nick Aldis against. When this whole AEW thing was starting up, AEW and NW, not NWA, fucking whatever the fuck, Omega and his bullshit, Omega wrestling other people from other territories, and Omega doing Impact Wrestling, I was assuming that the NWA was going to get involved, because some of these wrestlers like Thunder Rosa have been going over there and to AEW, and but I don't see Aldis. I guess one thing about Nick Aldis, he doesn't feel like he needs to go wrestle everywhere he wants to. Maybe Nick Aldis is very comfortable wrestling, you know, three times a month, who knows, or less. He doesn't seem like a guy, I guess he's invested his money well, or he gets enough money from idiots like me who bought his paperback book. He doesn't need to wrestle every single time he can wrestle, so that's fine. Although the NWA World Champion, you'd think he'd want to get into the mix and get to this AEW, and I kind of would like to see Nick Aldis show up in AEW, but it hasn't happened. They were also going back to this Thunder Rosa Camille thing. The stipulation that if Camille beats Thunder Rosa can no longer wrestle outside of the NWA. That's an interesting theory. Instead of a loser leaves town match stipulation, you have a loser stays in town match stipulation. Overall, was it worth the $5? Yeah, I'd say so. It's nice to know that there's something else going on that's interesting in wrestling. Definitely the show, see, this is the thing, and this is going to piss people off, but even with my AEW, I say the same thing for AEW and the NWA here, it feels like this current non-WWE wrestling, let's take WWE out of it, but AEW, I don't know if you'd put, I don't watch enough Impact to say if they're in this, but these NWA shows and the AEW shows, they feel like ghosts of wrestling past sometimes. Like the champagne thing they just did on AEW, the champagne shower. Well, that's a tip of the hat to the milk shower. And before that, the beer shower from Austin. And the milk one from Angle. And a lot of things, and War Games, or, you know, Blood and Guts, which the AEW kept making mention of War Games lineage, which technically it's not. It's its own thing. But they were trying to claim 1987 lineage, which I kind of don't appreciate that. But the point is, why don't I appreciate it? Because technically Blood and Guts is not War Games, because it's a different name, that's all. So they're claiming that the first Blood and Guts, and when I say they, Jim Ross and Shivani, are claiming the first Blood and Guts was back in 1987. That was not a fucking Blood and Guts. That was a War Games, the Match Beyond, assholes. So nobody uses the Match Beyond term, by the way. But as far as, it just feels like a lot of the wrestling now that's good, or it feels fun to watch, is like a tribute or a tip of the hat to old stuff. And although there's new wrestling being made, it doesn't always feel like new ideas. Just they're digging through the lineage, the history of the last 20, 30 years of wrestling, and picking things out that people might have forgotten about or people liked, and just doing it in a different way. Of course, I have a fucking $1 million idea for wrestling that I wrote my goddamn self, which has not been used, but that's another fucking story. So anyway, my thoughts. So Mark with a C, with last name T, I hope you've enjoyed your special fucking dedicated video. I thought it was a good video. I thought I gave you some feedback on Nick Aldis. We went into the NWA. trying to stay on the path here and not viverfuck into other realms of AEW and so forth. But whenever you're talking wrestling, it's such an easy way to get, cross-pollinated. I would say that I don't know one thing about Nick Aldis again. I don't know if I have a favorite Nick Aldis match, but I was almost going to do this. I was going to almost rewatch that thing where he beat Cody for his second NWA World title reign, which I did remember watching that match. Somehow I saw it, and I think I'll like to watch that match again. But I'd like to see Nick Aldis. He's got the talking. He really needs that top opponent. So, could he take that NWA title to Jacksonville? Could he end up there and maybe wrestle Christian? That might be interesting. Could he wrestle whoever the fuck? That might be interesting. All right, Mike Messier, subscribe, like, share the fucking video. Mike Messier.